Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 mod review, and today, the Frommer Stop is out. You can go ahead and download it now on PC, and the Xbox version will be coming sometime very soon. Now, really quick, before we begin, I just want to say, I'm sorry this thing took so long. This thing has actually been pretty close to done for a long while now, but I lost a lot of motivation. Real life just started to kind of get in the way of things, but now it's done, and again, really sorry that it took this long, and hopefully that won't become an issue with future mod projects, but you know, you can never guarantee too much. Regardless, the Frommer's out and now you can use it, and I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I think there are a couple of things that could be better, but for the most part, I really like this thing. It's going to be a pretty simple pistol. If you're familiar with the Frommer Stop from World War I, it's going to be a nice little copy of that with a couple of artistic liberties here and there and some funky Fallout style attachments that you can throw on over at the weapons workbench. If you want to get a hold of this thing, it is added to the leveled list and will start spawning out in the world after level 5 on gunners, minutemen, railroad agents, triggermen, and the occasional raider or settler. But despite being spread across so many lists, it actually is a pretty rare drop and takes a while for you to find one. Since this is an antique pistol, I didn't want it to be showing up absolutely all over the place. Functionally, this weapon will perform similarly to a lower level deliverer, except it's chambered in 38, a more common caliber. Since there just aren't too many 38 weapons in the game, I figured this would be a nice one for the early game that you could pick up to make use of that 38 ammo without needing to use a pipe gun. And I figured that since there were actually some Frommer stops chambered in 380, 38 is the closest thing we have in vanilla Fallout 4 without adding a new ammo type, so I think that's the best fit for this weapon. Now, since this is my first time recreating an actual real-world weapon in Fallout 4, I wanted to try to stay as true as I could to the original, but then add in different Fallout twists here and there at the weapons modifications that help to make this thing feel special. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in-game, check out the stats, some of the features, reload animations, all that fun stuff, and then of course the attachments and a damage test at the end. Now, for starters, we need to talk about stats. When you first pick up this weapon, it's going to have a base damage of 18, again, using 38 caliber rounds, has a fire rate of 66, a range of 83, an accuracy of 60, a weight of 4.8 pounds, and a value of 79 caps. This again is with no attachments. This is just the base version of the Frommer. There are little minor inconsistencies with the real world weapon, but I think I got it pretty dang close when trying to line everything up with vanilla animations. Now, when it comes to actually using this weapon in-game, I think it makes a mighty fine sidearm. The iron sights line up really nice. Of course, for animations, I did use the deliverer animation since they fit this weapon really well, especially with the weird internal slide design. When it comes to sounds, I actually use the vanilla assault rifle sounds, which may seem a bit weird, but they're actually super weak sounding in the vanilla game, and I don't think they fit the AR at all, but they definitely fit this weapon. Now, I know I am using vanilla reload animations, but I'll go ahead and show them off just so you can see how the weapon looks when you actually download it. Now, while we're on the topic of animations, you can download any deliverer reload animation replacers you want, but keep in mind that they may not work perfectly with this weapon since they weren't designed for it. Additionally, you may have to realign the sights because I've noticed in my testing, the same is true for the deliverer itself. When you download some of those mods, it will misalign the sights, especially when it comes to different optics available in this weapon mod. Now then, let's go ahead and test out the accuracy really quick. I assume that this will be able to land all of its targets. It should be pretty fine. It is relatively accurate, except much like our last test, this little target right here in the middle is just finicky sometimes. I don't know why. Blame the target, not the gun. Now then, in terms of attachments for this weapon, I tried to give the user the most variety that I could while still maintaining some sort of functionality or purpose, along with a couple of cosmetic options here or there, and I think we have a good assortment of attachments. You can really make this thing look a good bit different from its original version, and I gotta say, I like some of these a whole lot. I'm pretty proud of a couple of these. So let's go ahead and start with the receivers. Of course, we have standard through advanced. When it comes to your semi-automatic receivers, we're giving you a max damage of 39 without perks, compared to the 18 standard. And then we also have an experimental automatic receiver because I figured it would be fun to have an automatic version of this pistol, since most of the weapons in Fallout 4 do have some kind of automatic receiver variant. Though if you want to craft it, you will need some spec into the commando perk tree. Now then, for barrels, we have the short barrel, long barrel, and extra long barrel based off of the sort of pilot barrels from the World War I era. I like this thing a lot. If you want some range and you really want to snipe with this weapon, go ahead and throw on the extra long barrel. It's a lot of fun and it looks really neat. For grips, we have wood and polymer, nothing too crazy there, of course with the little Frommer Stop logo in both. And then for magazines, we have the standard mag, the standard quick eject mag, which each have, I believe, 7 rounds plus 1. And then we have the extended mag and extended quick eject, which I think is 11 rounds. And then the really extended rag should give you 15 or 16 rounds, somewhere around there. This is single stack, so there's not a lot of bullets. And that's one thing to try to help balance this weapon for the early game compared to something else like the Deliverer in the late game. Now then, for sights, we do actually have a good bit of options, which is interesting because the regular old Frommer Stop doesn't have any sort of optic mounts, but I went ahead and made some. We have the standard iron sights, we have the compact reflex sight, which is just the standard little reflex from the vanilla game, the tactical reflex sight from the 44, the enclosed reflex sight from the 10mm and assault rifle, and we have the combat optic, which is a little scope I nif bashed out of some Nuka World parts that will be featured in some of the attachment packs later on. We have, of course, that laser sight featured in the lever action handmade, as well as other attachment packs that will be coming in the future. And this thing actually has a functional laser that you can aim with that we'll show off later. We have a short scope, of course, a short night vision scope, which is another custom model I went ahead and made for this that will be featured in future attachment packs. And I'm really happy with how this thing came out. I think it looks super neat. And then we have the recon scope, which is another little nif bash scope made out of a whole bunch of parts, with a side-mounted scope, sort of familiar to Han Solo's DL-44 in terms of inspiration, but it definitely came out way different, but I like it a lot. Then for muzzle devices, we have a handful of options. First of all, I wanted to have some upgradable different bayonet attachments. So the first one you have is the fork bayonet, which is literally a fork that has been bolted onto the front of this weapon that does the least amount of bash damage. Then we have the makeshift bayonet that you'll recognize from the pipe weapons, which will give a standard amount of bash damage. And then the heavy blade, which is a huge blade that has been fitted to nicely wrap around this weapon, and this gives you the most bash damage. And while the other two use the stabbing animation, this one will use the regular old bash, since it's like you're swinging at them with a big sort of axe. It'll also greatly increase the weight of this weapon. Then we also have two suppressor options, a makeshift suppressor and a regular suppressor. The makeshift suppressor will actually increase your accuracy just a teeny bit and will also, of course, suppress your weapon, while the other suppressor, the regular suppressor, will be less heavy and it will give you a nice boost to range, since real suppressors do actually do that, rather than the weird video game suppressors that reduce your range. And then finally, we actually do have one more category, and that is going to be the skins available on this weapon. For starters, we have a couple of metal options, starting with regular old steel, a sort of gunmetal color. We also have blued steel, which adds a nice little blue tint. Nickel plating, which is going to be a lighter metal, almost a whitish metal whenever it actually hits the sunlight. And then, of course, you have to have gold plating if you're going to have swappable metals. We also have a couple of faction skins like the Minutemen paint, the Railroad paint, and the Gunner paint, which actually does have something on the other side here. And then there's also a handful of skins that I made to honor some of the other Fallout content creators out there, specifically on the YouTube side of things. So we have one for Kodabos Games, who does do mod reviews and other Fallout content, which is pretty cool. And I wanted to include his logo and the color scheme, and I think that came out really nice. Additionally, we have Brandy Boy's little American flag pistol here with his logo on there as well. I think this one came out super cool. I really like the American flag pattern. We also have Pig's piece of crap to honor Pig, if you know Pig on the Discord, and his old Rusty packs. We had to have some kind of a Rusty variant for him. And then finally, Al Chestbreech's engraved version. Now, it's kind of hard to see here in the menu, but I'll have some footage here playing that will show the up close. There's a nice engraving of Al and his buddies that he usually has as guests, including Mr. Cuddlesworth, Jerry McGoolberry, and Captain Ball Arms. I'm really proud of this one. I wasn't sure how the engraving would come out, but I think it was actually pretty cool. Alright, and now then it is of course time for our damage test, and I do have a couple of tests I want to run on this weapon. Since this is intended for the early game, but I do want it to scale a bit into the mid to late game, I wanted to test this thing out first of all with no attachments and no perks, then with a fully upgraded version of the weapon with no perks, and then a fully upgraded version of the weapon with all of the maxed out gunslinger perks so we can see how this weapon does at its maximum potential in the late game. And then I also wanted to test out the fully automatic version of the receiver with maxed out commando perks just to see how that holds up and if it's actually better than the semi-automatic version. It'll obviously be doing less damage per shot, but it may have a faster time to kill. Now then, let's go ahead and get started with our first version of the weapon. Again, this is the basic version with no attachments and no perks, so this is going to take a while, and we do have pretty small magazine sizes, so just bear with me here. Now then, turns out I accidentally had God mode enabled, so my bad on that, but it did spare us having to watch 80 different reloads because that took forever to put down a Deathclaw, which makes sense. This weapon is not intended for that. It's using 38s and it's meant for level 5, so definitely not meant for taking down Deathclaws, but maybe a fully upgraded version of the weapon will do better. Let's see how it does. Sadly, we couldn't get it down in one extended mag, but a couple shot later and the Deathclaw is down. So it performs decent. Again, not intended for taking down Deathclaws, but maybe with maxed out pistol perks, it'll do a bit better. I suppose we'll just have to see. Aiming for the Deathclaw's weak point again. Taking down the Deathclaw in only 8 shots. Definitely much better than the last time. And then of course finally, let's test out the full auto version with maxed out commando to see how it does in the late game. And not too bad, the Deathclaw goes down in only 10 shots, only 2 more than the last test, and it was much faster. And definitely easier to get a tighter grouping when you're in full auto with this thing. Super cool. So yeah guys, that is the Frommer Stop. Again, so sorry it took so long, but it's finally here and you can download it today. It'll be linked down in the description below, of course, if you want to try it, and I really do hope that you guys enjoy it. The Xbox version will be coming very soon, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to try to get it out a lot faster than all of my other mods. Really quick before we go, since we are talking about my mods, now that this one is done, that means I am in full swing getting that attachment pack ready. Another thing to apologize for, every single one of you who have been waiting for that thing since August when I first revealed that I wanted to make it. Well, it's about to be August again, meaning that this mod has been in the works for over a year, and I'm restarting it from scratch, but I think it's going to be a whole lot better because of it. So that is going to be the next mod I'm working on, and this time I won't have any other mods to give attention to. I'm going to work on the attachment pack until the attachment pack is done, and another thing that's different is this time I have some other mod authors who are willing to help me with the process, so we should be able to get it out pretty quick. And after the first attachment pack, I actually want to do more attachment packs with different themes, so stay tuned for information on that. Hopefully I will be able to give you some updates very soon. And stay tuned for streams, because I will be doing some streams of me working on the models that will be included in the attachment pack. So if you want to come and hang out during one of those, that would be super cool. Now then, with that, let's go ahead and wrap things up. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video, and I hope you guys enjoy the mod. If you did, don't forget to drop a rating. Consider subscribing if you haven't already for more videos just like this. That way you can see them as soon as they come out. And a really huge thank you to all of my patrons for supporting every single video and every single mod. Thanks to your guys' support for helping me do these cool little side projects on top of all of the YouTube videos. And as always, a very special thank you to Astro, Captain Chaos, Helljumper 2077, Indecisive Wolf, Jackie Noid, Moonlit Gamer, Feed, and Youth RC for signing up for that Tier 3 Patreon membership. You guys are super generous, and I don't deserve all of your support. If you want to check out Patreon, it will be linked in the description, but it is completely optional. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I really hope to see you in the next video. Peace!